So, good afternoon to all of you. Again, thank you for your presence in our GOPI GITA series. Today we are in our 21st, 20th first meeting, and we finally arrived to the last verse of the GOPI GITA, 19, verse 19, 31, chapter 31, 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So today we will be officially finishing the GOPI GITA, although as I mentioned, we will continue for during one more week with the extra official ending of the GOPI GITA, seeing some further verses from next chapter and ending the whole Rasa Panchadhyay section, if you will. But today we will go in detail with this last verse, which is a very special, important shloka. But as usual, before going there, we will first make some brief summary of the verse we were studying yesterday, verse number 18, penultimate shloka of GOPI GITA. Brajavanokasham vyaktirangate brijjinahantralam vishwamangalam tyajamanakchanas tatsprihatmanam sajanahridurujam yannishudanam. So there the gopis are singing, O beloved, your appearance vanquishes the distress of those living in Braja's forests, and in every way is extremely auspicious for the whole world. Our minds long for your association. Please give to us in charity just a bit of that medicine which can cure your dear ones. So in this verse we are approaching today's verse. As you know, there is a whole crescendo building up in the whole GOPI GITA, which every verse getting much more emotionally surcharged, intense than the previous one. So this verse is the second of the group of two, as Sridhar Swami mentioned, which contains at the same time similar elements of some previous verses, but here, as I said, much more intensified than before. So here the gopis are asking to Krishna some of a little bit of that, manak, they say, because they are blazing I mean, actually, they, again, as we say, in the direct meaning, it seems the gopis are blazing in the force of separation, of desire, but actually it's Krishna, the original one, who is agitated. So the gopis imply, you are blazing in our hearts. You are in our heart. You are blazing. No? So we are asking your appearance not for our sake, but for your own sake. We are both Brajakas and Bonokas, as the verse is saying. No, you appear for the benefit of the ones dwelling in the forest and dwelling in the village of Braj. And we are Brajavasis, but now we are also dwelling in the midst of the forest at night. So your appearance will be especially befitting, even though it's extremely auspicious for all, Vishwamangalam, the verse says, for the whole universe, and in a more specific way, your appearance is auspicious and counteracts all inauspiciousness for the Brajavasis in particular. Even more specifically, that will be auspicious for us, because we are now in this particular context, situation, with this very unique type of necessity, which actually belongs to you, that necessity. So the gopi says, Krishna, please appear and give us a little bit of that something. So in this indirect expression, Krishna insists, what's that something? Speak more in detail. I want to know about that. So here the gopis will keep expressing themselves indirectly in this connection. As you already know, the language of love is not overt, direct. So the gopis are asking a little bit, but we mentioned also that's a way of saying, because actually they won't be satisfied with just a little bit, because there are millions of gopis there dying in separation, and just one drop of that medicine divided into millions actually will kill them much more. As if you throw a little bit of water into a forest fire, that will act as ghee, it is said. Instead of putting the fire off, it will fuel it. So they're asking a little bit. Also, that's a way of saying when you are begging for something very valuable. The famous example is Vamandev asking for just 3 steps, but actually taking more than the whole galaxy with him. So eventually Krishna keeps insisting on, eventually they say to Krishna, between the lines, again, there's no say directly, but in between the lines, with the commentaries of our acharyas, who even themselves didn't say it all, because of the nature of revelation and of intimate topics not to be overtly expressed. But the gopi is expressed between the lines. Put your hands, your lotus hands in our breasts, in our hearts. And so you can alleviate, you can pacify your calm, your desire. In this verse, now in this present verse, today's verse, that will be much more clear. But again, more specific details are not to be publicly shared, if you will, and those are to be realized, achieved through deep sadhana. That's it, the whole conclusion. And the conclusion of the verse, in this verse, it's again, appear before us, Bhakti. They say Bhakti Ranga. Bhakti means appearance. So Bhakti refers to how the gopis saw in Krishna the appearance of different symptoms of his own desire. And in order to satisfy him, they asked him, Bhakti, make yourself manifest so we can fully alleviate your pain in your heart. So finally, after all these first 18 verses, we come to the last one verse of the Gopi Gita that we will be sharing today. So I will be sharing it here in the chat section. There it is. So we will recite it in Sanskrit as usual. And after that, some unpacking will be there. So the verse is like this. Jati sujat charanam buruham staneshu bhitasanai priyadadhi mahikarakaseshu tenata vimmatasitat bhyatate na kimshrit purpadibhir brahmatidhir bhavadayu samna. So the meaning of the verse says like this. O dearly beloved, so soft and noble are your lotus feet that we place them softly on our hard breasts, fearing that your feet will be hurt. Tonight, with those very same soft feet, you are wandering somewhere in this secluded forest. Are your lotus feet not in pain, being injured by sharp stones, edges of dry grains, and the like? O you who are our very life, our minds reel at the thought of it. Our life rests only in you. So this is the conclusive verse of the Gopi Gita. And this is a very deep verse with lots of things to be said, which somehow or other represents all the previous verses and adds something else to the equation. So let's take some time to go over it and trying to unfold some of its meanings. So first of all, of course, we'll share a little bit the word by word translation, the whole idea. So the first line says, Yat te sujata charanam buruham sanesu. So the verse continues with the idea of the feet of Krishna. Many verses speaking about Krishna's lotus feet, but as we will see in very particular mood. So they refer to the charana amburuham, which means lotus feet. Charana, feet, and amburuham, which means lotus. So your lotus feet, yat, which, te means your. So your lotus feet, which are sujata. Sujata means very fine. So what Jate sujata taranamburuham stanesu. Stanesu means on the breasts. So the gopis are begging for receiving Krishna's very soft lotus feet on their breasts. So first line, Jate sujata charanamburuham stanesu. And then they say Bitha sane priyadadi mahikaraka seshu. Bitha means being afraid. The gopis being afraid. Sanai means gently. So we will be put those feet on our breast in a very gentle way. Being afraid. Being afraid of what? They will say now. Priya. Priya means, oh dear one, oh beloved. Dadi mahi karaka sesu. Dadi mahi means we place very gently on our breast, being afraid of karaka sesu. Karaka sesu means rough, of the possible roughness of our own breasts in comparison to your soft lotus feet. Now we will unpack the meaning of this idea, but I think you have it very clear already. So we are afraid of how rough our breasts are in comparison to the softness of your lotus feet. So we will place them on our hearts in a very gentle, soft way. That's the second line. Third line says, Tenatavim atasitat bhyatatena kimsvit. So Tenatavim, Tena means with them, with those feet, Atavim, Atasi. Atasi means you roam, you wander in the Atavim. Atavim means the forest. So with those same feet, you roam in the forest. Tinatavim Atasi Yat Tat means they, those feet. Bhyatatena kimsvit. So Bhyatatena kimsvit. So Bhyatate means distressed. We are distressed. Kimsvit, we wander. So we wonder if now in this precise moment, with those very same soft feet, you may be wandering somewhere in this secluded forest. So we wonder because of that. And the last line explains why are they wandering and where are their bhyatate, why they are distressed about such a wandering. Kurpadi bir brahmatidir bhavanayusamna. So kurpa adibi, by the small stones and so on present in the forest. Brahmati means flutters. Dhi means the mind. Our mind is fluttering by such a thought. And why? Why are we so extremely concerned about such a minute possibility of that thing happening? Bhavat ayusamna. Bhavat ayusam means of those. Bhavat ayusam means of those of whom your lordship is their bare life, and na means of us. In other words, you are our bare life, and that's why we are deeply afflicted just by the possibility, the mere thought of your soft lotus feet being hindered by these soft pebbles of the forest. So in all this anxiety, we are begging for you to appear and please place those same lotus feet on our heart, on our breast, even though we know they are hard and they are rough in comparison to such a thing, but that's the best thing we can offer at the present moment, basically. That's the idea that it's implied here. Guru Maharaj, in his aesthetic Vedanta commentary to this verse, he mentioned this much more clearly. He mentioned that in this final verse, the utterly selfless nature of the gopis' love is underscored when appearing in a setting so conducive to and suggestive of selfishness. The contrast between love and lust here is striking, Guru Maharaj says. For on one side, the gopis desire to place Krishna's feet on their breasts, which appears very much like lust. Yet, he says, the gopis, although requesting Krishna to touch their breasts with the soles of his feet, desire him to do so only because it is the softest thing they possess. Pained by the thought of Krishna's tender feet being pricked by the forest terrain, he says, they are simultaneously pained at the thought of how rough their breasts are in comparison to Krishna's lotus feet. So only for lack of something softer do they offer their breasts, not to enjoy him through their senses, but to please his senses. So Guru Maharaj ends his commentary with this very definition of what's prem, which means Krishnandriya Priti Icha Dhare Premanam. To live for Krishna's sense enjoyment, and not Atmendriya Priti Icha Dhare Balikam, to live for our sense enjoyment. That's the difference between lust and prem, basically. Both imply sense enjoyment, but one is self-centered, the other is Krishna-centered. So here the gopis seem to be begging from a lusty background, but actually their only concern is give pleasure to their beloved. And they're actually suffering, they're crying by asking this, because they're already anticipating the roughness of their breast in comparison to Krishna's softness, but that's the softest thing they have, and they're willing to suffer in order to give him at least some relief if he may be experiencing some pain by wandering in the forest. So this is a very interesting verse, and the implications that Guru Maharaj mentioned here has to do with the full phase of prem, which has to do with only living for Krishna's sense enjoyment. Actually, the word gopi has to do with gopi means protector of senses. Go means senses, and P is the female of Pa. Gopa, Gopal, Gopi, the one who protects Allah. So the gopis live for protecting Krishna's senses constantly by giving his senses full satisfaction, transcendental experience. So they are protecting Krishna and protecting Krishna's senses. Hrishikena Hrishikesh Sivanam Bhakti Uchyate. That's the topmost expression of this idea, no? Of giving pleasure to the senses of the Lord of the senses, using our senses fully for the Lord of the senses. No? Krishna Guna Ruperas Gandha Sabde Parayas. So sings Sila Krishna Das Kaviraj, no? Krishna Guna Ruparas Gandha Sabda Paraya Dhyashtudashvadi Gopigan Tashavara Grasha Shishri Ani Panchandriya Shishyan Shebikheraka Jivan. He's speaking how the gopis are contacting Krishna's sight, touch, taste, smell, all these different sense capacities, and enjoying in that regard, of giving himself enjoying by Krishna's enjoyment. And Krishna Kaviraj says, well, with my mind, I will go to beg for and my the five disciples of my mind, the wandering, the senses, I will beg for some of the remnants of the gopis' experience, in the context of course, Manjari Bhav. So, Krishna Andriya Priti Chadare Premananda. Gopis live only for Krishna's enjoyment, for Krishna's sense enjoyment. So, interestingly, this verse of the Gopi Gita is quoted by Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami in the context of this famous verse that he presents in Chaitanya Charitamrita, defining prem in contrast with kam. First, he quotes the verse, Admendriya Pritibam Chadare Balikam, etc. What's last? What's prem? Then, some verses after that, he quotes this verse in the context of the gopis' love, and he mentions that's in verse 165, fourth chapter, Adi Lila. If in verse 172, 7 verses later, he said, thus there is not the slightest taint of lust in the gopis' love. The relationship with Krishna is only for the sake of his enjoyment, like expanding on the idea of Krishna Andriya Priti Chadare Pramana. And after saying this, in such context, the next verse, 173, is this verse of the Gopi Gita. This is quoted as the classical example of someone living for Krishna's sense enjoyment. Today's verse, last verse of the Gopi Gita. So again, this is explaining the context of the official definition of prem given in Chaitanya Charitamrita in contrast with lust. And the example of the gopis is properly quoted since it seems to be lust. It seems so much, but it's so much more than that. So that's a little bit of the context, how this verse also presents itself in other parts, and what's the ultimate meaning in connection of prem, unalloyed prem. So, so Krishna, remember what he said in the previous verse. Krishna was insisting to the gopis, speak plainly, openly, what do you want? And he told to the gopis, I won't give you anything until you clearly tell me the specific nature of your heart disease and what medicine you want. They were asking for that in the previous verse. So otherwise, how can I remove your disease? Be extremely specific, please. So when Krishna persisted in this way till this point, is that the gopis began to weep, and they spoke this verse actually, as he said, weeping, not blazing in mundane experience, but blazing the forest fire of divine separation and love. So they're weeping. And weeping is a classical expression of love in Indian tradition. In India, women often weep as they express their feelings in very sweet songs. That's even in a cultural setting, what to speak of a transcendental one. So in that moment, they're weeping and they're singing very sweetly. So you cannot discern, are they singing? Are they weeping? In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, we find some example like this. Gopakumar was hearing something that sounded like a very beautiful song. So he get closer to that. He followed the sound. He came nearer, but he was not able to discern, to understand. Is a singer weeping or is a singer overjoyed singing? There was a mixture of sweetness and pain, if you will. So following the sound a bit further, he entered a particular forest, Kunja, and he saw his guru there. And he was singing very sweetly, but at the same time, he was weeping with tears in his eyes, almost unconscious to the external environment. So in the same way, or similarly to that, let's say, the gopis are weeping here as they are singing this sweet song. And in this in particular in this verse, of course, this happens along the whole Gopi Gita. There's expressing their love, their pain, their sweetness, their crying, but particularly in this verse, all this reach a topmost expression. So basically, the gopis here are saying, no, we will only be able, they are asking this to Krishna, we will only be able to maintain our lives if we can take your lotus feet in our hands and with intense feelings of love, which intense feelings of possessiveness, mamata, towards you, we may be able to place those feet on our breasts. So to connect, mamata has to do with prem. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami, when he describes prem officially, another way of speaking of prem, apart from the one description we already gave, is a deep sense of possessiveness towards Krishna. In terms of I and my. I and my is the source of entanglement in this realm, but this is the source of divine experience in the topmost realm. With Krishna in the center again. The only problem is Krishna is not in the center. I mean, he's in the center, but we are not yet willing to accept that. That's the only problem. So with a deep sense of possessiveness, mamata, towards Krishna, the gopis invite him to appear and present his feet there. And here so possessiveness has to do with prem. So here we are witnessing the highest degree of possessiveness, which implies the highest degree of prem. So which is the highest degree of prem in the context of Gopi Bhav? Radha prem. So this verse will be exclusively connected, or mainly connected, let's say, in the deepest way to Sri Radha, Srimati Radharani speaking here. So before going in detail to Radha's presence in this verse that we will speak quite a lot today, also let me mention in this connection regarding Radha Bhav in this verse, here we find something very interesting that I don't know if you noticed that, if you have good ear, you have noticed that this particular verse has a different chanda. Chanda means meter than all the other verses. I already recited 18 verses with the same specific meter, melody, and so on. This one is different. This different melody. It's called Basanta Tilak, the present one. And the rest of the Gopi Gita is in another chant, in another meter called Indira chant. And this is Basanta Tilak chant. So you may wonder why. Of course, sometimes we hear that at the end of a certain particular section, chapter, song, the last verse is different, presents some unique characteristics. Some of them are Phala Shruti, mentioning the fruits of such studying such section. This is not the case as a Phala Shruti, at least. But in this case, there are some unique things to say in connection to the different meter. So according to the chant Shastra and the scriptures on meter, there's a Shastra for everything. Indira chant, the previous one, the one pertaining to the first 18 verses, is known by other two different names as well, which are called Lalit chant and Kanak Manjari chant. So Lalit means elegance, and Kanak Manjari means orchid, like the flower orchid. So what's the meaning of this? On one side, the Gopi Gita, as we have already seen, the meter, the presentation has so much elegance and so many attributes, as I mentioned in the first class, the different syllables repeating first and seventh, and so many interesting grammatical arrangements there. So it has Lalit, it has elegance, and also it has orchid. What does it mean, orchid? Well, orchid has the potential to become an intoxicated substance. So as the Gopi Gita progresses, it's becoming more and more intoxicating, just like the Kanak Manjaris, just like the orchids had that potential. So till now we found these two qualities in the Gopi Gita, the elegance of love and its subsequent intoxication, this crescendo, verse after verse after verse. Also Indira chant, because we mentioned first of all Lalit and Kanak Manjari, two other names for this Indira chant. What does Indira mean? As you may recall, in the first verse of the Gopi Gita, the word Indira is there. So Indira is a name for Lakshmi, could be also a name for Radha, as we mentioned. So it refers to someone who donates Aishvarya, who gives wealth, spiritual wealth mainly. So in the first verse of the Gita, this word is there. So by this meter, or by this meter in the song, the gopis, the Lakshmis of Vrindavan, Sahasra Sata Sambramana Sevyamana Lakshmi Sahasranam. And the gopis in Braj, led by Radha, which is the topmost Mahalakshmi or goddess of fortune in Braj, they're showing their eagerness to give this dan, to give this charity, this Aishwarya, the wealth of love to Krishna. And of course, eventually Krishna will reciprocate as well, as we will see. So that's implied in all these first 18 verses. The gopis singing and donating this Aishwarya. It's Madhurya actually, but as you know, there's another way of speaking about Madhurya, the wealth of love. Golokar Prema Dhan. So the point is, why a different meter here? No? First 18 verses totally justified, and we could apply that to this one. And of course, we apply all those things. Here we find elegance, intoxication, and wealth of love. But some specific distinction is to be made here. Sukadev feels that inspiration when invoking this last verse. And why? Because this verse is spoken by Sri Radha. Again, some of the previous verses may have been spoken by her according to different interpretations and whatever what we already explained. But according to the commentators, this is much more connected to her, if you will, emphasis, higher emphasis in the focus of Sri Radha, leading the whole song to all the gopis, basically. So in this way, this verse will be considered much more elevated and different in mood from all the other verses in the Gopi Gita. Actually, it is said that this verse is the very heart, the ultimate heart of the Gopi Gita, and thus the very ultimate heart of the Bhagavad. We'll explain something else at the end. So here, the Madanakya Mahabhav, the topmost ultimate expression, Sri Radha, is being fully expressed in this verse. Again, although on a very much diluted level, this verse may be interpreted as the Dakshin Bhav of Chandravali and her Sakhis. But again, that's a lower interpretation for us. But mainly it can be mainly understood, as we will see, to be extremely leftist, Bhamya Bhav in mode. So of course we are mainly interested in this direction here. And also what is implied here is the Mahabhav of Radha includes all the other gopis' emotions. Actually, to say that all the gopis are emotional representations of Radha. One emotion of Radha appearing separate in one unique form as a gopi, another emotion as a gopi, and in Radha all those emotions and more is expressed. So if you understand this, and we would like to think, okay, other gopis sang similar verses, other verses of the Gita, well, if Radha's Mahabhav includes all the other gopis' emotions, all the gopis represent Radha's emotions, so we could say that the whole Gopi Gita is sung by Radha in this sense, since she's representing them all, and her Mahabhav is including all the other bhavs, all the other emotions. So that's also one approach. So let me share you some background of this verse as given by Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur in his Sarartha Darshini. So he paraphrases Krishna, replying to the gopis in connection to the previous verse. They say, okay, you woman experiencing love, those feet for which you have prayed are now absorbed in the pleasure of wandering about the forest. Therefore, there is no chance that they can be placed on your breasts. Because again, the previous verse, they implied that thing, give us a little bit of that medicine, which implied put your hands here, or your feet, whatever. So Krishna, in the midst between that verse and this one, he's, according to Vishwanath, mentioning this. Those feet that you are asking for, they are freely wandering in the forest, so no chance of them being put in your breast. So the gopis will speak this verse and reply according to Vishwanath. Cheerfully, in a tearful way, they will speak this. Not cheerfully, but tearfully. And he even said that there is this verse is pronounced, that's why also it's a different meter. There's a different modulation in the tone of the voice. And the drift of the verse is, alas, he says, alas. What an improper and unprecedentedly rash thing to do, for you to be wandering in the forest in such a way and for us to be waiting for those feet in that way. So let's go also a little bit to the meaning of the words and the implications of some of them. A very nice word here is sujata, which serves to qualify charanam buruham. Charanam buruham means lotus feet, and sujata means very fine. So the word sujata in this verse refers to someone who has been born in a very respectable family also. Jata has to do with born. As you speak a jata, ruchi, raganuga, bhakti, and so on. Jata means born. And su means very refined, very exalted, very special. Someone coming from a very respectable background in this case. So they are speaking about Krishna's lotus feet. So the lotus flower is sujata. That's the poetic implication, because lotus flowers blossoms in pure, clean water, and thus it has many natural qualities like softness and a very sweet fragrance. It also gives a cooling effect. So lotus it's always used for so many symbolic purposes. So the gopis are using this word, sujata, to further describe the qualities of Krishna's lotus feet, implying all the feet has all those qualities, and by contrast, expressing their anxiety that those soft, fragrant feet may be pained somehow or other. In this way, just as they express their anxiety about Krishna's walking in the forest in this verse, they also, I mean, they are doing that here as in the same way they did that before. Maybe you remember verse 11, Chalasiyat Brayat Charayam Pashum Nalina Sundaram Natate. But they mentioned there the same thing. Your feet are wandering in the forest. We are concerned about our mind experience in Spain, Kalilatam Mana, because of thinking of the possibility of your feet being hurt there. But again, here we are finding the highest possible expression of that same idea. So the lotus has these qualities, and Krishna's lotus feet has these qualities as well. So which are those qualities? For example, again, it's soft, delicate. The lotus has good aroma. It's good medicine, has medicinal properties, and it's aesthetic. It's beautiful. So these four attributes and more, of course, but are connected to Krishna's lotus feet. Jiva Goswami in his Lagu Vaishnav Toshani, he mentions that the fact that Krishna has lotus feet is already obtained by the metaphor with the lotus. If I say lotus feet, already it implies the feet are soft because they are compared to a lotus. So he says, so the extra modifier, sujata, which means very fine, already it's implied that they are fine and soft because of comparing to the lotus, but the word sujata, which implies very fine, is said with the intent to express that his feet are extremely soft, not only soft like the lotus. The analogy just serves a certain level. It's not complete. It's not fully. So that's why when some poets, when they compare Krishna's feet, Krishna's feet attributes with the lotus or whatever other thing here with the lotus, they will beg forgiveness, pray, let me excuse me for my offenses by comparing the softness and other attributes of your feet with lotus, in the sense of it's never enough. Any analogies never prove to be complete. So the poets beg forgiveness for such an analogy, and here the gopis are begging forgiveness, if you will, or basically being in anxiety by the hardness and harshness of their own breasts in comparison to the softness of Krishna's feet. So transcendental begging of forgiveness. So according to Vishwanath, at this point Krishna will ask the gopis, because the gopis here they're saying, we are afraid. They use this term, Bita naive. We are afraid, Bita. Why are you girls afraid? So the gopis will reply, our reason for fear is the hardness of our breasts. Again, in comparison to the softness of your feet. But so Krishna will ask, then why do you hold my feet on them? Why are you asking for that? Why you are doing that? So the gopis will reply according to Vishwanath, well, dear one, Priya. The word Priya is here, so that implies a particular affection. We hold them because we see that you gain satisfaction when your feet are held on our breasts. We have had already some experience of that. So seeing that you derive pleasure from pressing your feet on our hearts and our breasts, we accept that. But we experience grief by imagining that your tender feet are feeling pain. Therefore, we will hold them very carefully on our breasts. So in this way, you see that it's such a noble disposition from the gopis. It's just only concerned about Krishna's pleasure, taking care that he may not experience the least pain and anxiety and so on. So breasts, again, breasts also can serve as an analogy. Why breasts? No? So the gopis are calling Krishna here Priya, beloved. So where is a beloved? In your head? No, in your heart. So the idea is that the feet should be on the breast, because breast means the heart. That's the very same place. The breasts are outside, the feet are outside, but the heart is inside and the beloved is there. So you have to understand the poetic indirect implications. Even though externally it may seem something, again, we are here in the realm of indirect speech, suggested meaning. So externally it seems something else, and it seems something very mundane, but properly understood, it means something totally super transcendental. So the gopis are asking Krishna, in that direction, put your feet. We want to serve your feet on our hearts, because actually the heart is superior to all other parts of the body, the gopis imply. So we do not want to keep your feet anywhere else, only there. So again, the gopis are not expressing the mood directly, but in their hearts, they are saying this. We keep your lotus feet on our heart for your satisfaction. We know that's the abode of your satisfaction. We know that you want this. And that is why we wish to keep them here. Since you are our life. So our life wants that, we want that. There's no question about it. You are our life. That's a very important expression of this verse. That is not only in this verse, but in the very first verse of the Gopi Gita, the Gopi say, Tvai dhritashrabhas. Ashrabhas means life heirs, prana. So the Gopi say, Tvai, in you, our life heirs rest in you. Another way of saying, you are our life. They told Krishna this in the very first verse, and this is being repeated here in a very unique way. The same thing. In verse number 1, the word asavas has the same meaning as the word ayusan here, which means life. So here the gopis are saying that you are our very life, you are our soul, you are our everything, basically. Our sense of our is fully reposing you, full possessiveness, full mamata. So you are our, and you fill the line with whatever you like, that's you. So if anything is hurting your feet, and understand, if you, our life, if something hurts your feet, that pain will pierce our soul, our hearts, because you are our soul. So if our soul is being pierced, if you will, we will be pierced. Maybe you are not feeling the pinching. Maybe because that's why you may be wandering the forest now, who knows? But we are feeling it. So this is the disposition of the gopis. They have left everything just for the pleasure of Krishna. They are the real renunciants, topmost vairagis. No? As you know, vairagya means ragya, attachment, and vai as bishesh. Bishesh anurag means vairagya, a very special type of anurag or attachment. So vairagya means giving up all attachments, and as we shared someday, also emptying ourselves to be filled with Krishna's volition, Krishna's will, Krishna's desires and necessities. That's the example of the gopis here. Sometimes the analogy is given with the bamsi, the flute. Vairagya means giving up all attachments and becoming empty, quote unquote, like a hollow bamsi, like a bamboo dry stick. So Krishna's full breath, Krishna's full heart, full life, full pran can pass through the bamsi without any obstacles because it's hollow. So you have to empty yourself. Mahaprabhu, he desires that their followers become like bamsi. We should become like a flute in that sense, without even a cent of separate desire and attachment to anything in this world. So only then Krishna's breath will pass through fully without any inconvenience, any pain, that the gopis are so connected. And of course, Krishna will be totally indebted to such a person. This is one of the famous prayers in the Bhagavad, where Krishna, Bhagavan Vishnu actually is speaking here to Durvasa Muni. What to speak of Krishna? He says, Yadara Gara Putrapta Pranambitam Imam Param Hitamam Sharanam Yatva Katam Tam Staktumutsahe. He says to Durvasa, how can I let down my devotee who has given up wife, house, sons, relatives, and wealth only to take shelter of me? So of course this applies ultimately to the gopis who really left all that and are thus ultimate vairagis. So going back for a moment to this idea of you are our life, and how this idea was mentioned in the first verse of the Gita, of the Gopi Gita, and in this last one, we find this similar connection between other treatises, other scriptures, according to Upakraman Uprashamharam. What is being said at the beginning and what is being said at the end. According to that, we can establish what's the main point of certain section of the scriptures. For example, we find that also in the Bhagavatam. We find that also in the Bhagavad Gita. The same auspicious words are uttered in both the first and concluding verses. For example, in the Bhagavad, first verse ends with Dimahi, Satyam Param Dimahi. Let's meditate on the Supreme Absolute Truth. And also this Satyam Param Dimahi is also repeated in the Bhagavad. Not the very last verse, but the conclusive verse of the Bhagavad, which is 4 verses before the last one. So we find this similar repetition there. Satyam Param Dimahi, that's what the Bhagavad is about. And also in the Bhagavad Gita, we find the same principle. Krishna begins his instructions to Krishna after Arjuna, Krishna begins his instructions to Arjuna, after Arjuna surrendered to him. When he says, Sisyasteham sadimam tam prapanam, he mentions the word prapanam. I surrender myself at your feet. That's only when Krishna starts speaking. Before that, he was just hearing Arjuna's arguments and looking at the watch and saying, is that all you have to say? And he continued. So he couldn't speak because the disciple was not there, so Guru was not able to be there yet. But when Arjuna surrenders, prapanam, so that's the beginning of the Gita, if you will, in one sense, of the instruction. And that prapanam means the same of sharanam, the conclusive section of the Gita. Sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja. Sharanam means to surrender. This flute song, as we know, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur called the flute call of Krishna in this verse. Flute is sound, surrender, leave everything and surrender to me. So the flute song, then we have the Venu Gita in the Bhagavad, the song of the flute itself, and now we have the Gopi Gita, which is the Gopi's answer to Krishna's flute song, if you will. So in this way, in the beginning and end of all the Vedic scriptures, we find the same principle. Important, very important truths, very important instructions will be repeated again and again, and that's why also we repeat, daily, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It seems we are repeating again and again and again the same, but it's a very important thing to say. So similarly, the main objective of the gopis, the fundamental point of them is expressing to Krishna, you are our life. Let's try to pray and go deep into this conception and to express that to our love from the deepest core of our heart. You are our life. And of course, not only saying that, walking the talk. So this conception is repeated by the gopis and of course by many other devotees many times along the Bhagavatam. And particularly this idea appears here in the Gopi Gita, in the beginning, in the middle several times as well, but also here at the end. So the gopis are over and over again establishing this point, offering their lives to their very lives, basically, because their lives do not belong to them. So further, the gopis implied to Krishna in this verse, they said, when you place your lotus feet on our hearts, 2 things happen, interestingly. First, we become happy because you are happy, we know. And second, we feel sorry, paradigmatic situation, because our breasts are so hard. So, but still, we see that you are a little satisfied with that. So we become so happy that eventually our sorrows and suffering disappear by seeing your happiness. So their happiness is Krishna's happiness. So it's interesting because in these verses we already spoke before, the gopis are concerned about Krishna's feet being experiencing pain in the forest, But we know that when Krishna is taking the cows out to graze during the day or whatever, whenever he's going wandering in the forest, generally he goes to lush green pasturing grounds, and the personification of Earth herself, Bhumi Prithvi Devi, is actually one of his queens. Mother Earth is married to Krishna. So, especially for the comfort of Krishna's feet, Bhumi is growing very silken soft grasses at the time of his appearance in the world. And wherever Krishna is going, Bhumi Ma is extending her tongue. Sometimes this is depicted like that, which is hundreds and thousands of times softer than any carpet under Krishna's lotus feet. The analogy of the tongue is there because it says that in this way, Mother Earth is relishing the sweetness with that tongue, like earth, relishing the sweetness of Krishna's feet. So the point is, there is no chance of Krishna's feet contact entering in touch with sharp stones, edges of dry grains or shoots, whatever. And also Vrindavan itself is managed, as we know, by Brinda Devi. It's her forest. So she has made all arrangements so that not a single stone or other sharp object will be there to hurt Krishna's feet. So the point is, the gopis still are concerned. In the verse number 11, which is similar to this one in showing the concern of the gopis, there is a mention of sharp stubs of wild grasses and so on in terms of being abundant. But because Krishna was only roaming in a place that had soft grass to graze the cattle. But now in this verse, the gopis know that Krishna is not grazing the cattle on this precise moment. He may be nearby us, who knows, nearby the Jamuna. They use the word Kurpadibir. So here Kurpadibir means small stones. Because of roaming, in the shore of the Jamuna, where the gopis are now and where Krishna is now, he's hidden behind the tamal tree very close by. So it is said that the shores of the Jamuna, there is some sort of beach, river. So it's look at the place of, we may have some harsh stones there. Although in those days, actually, there were no reason to be concerned about such stones. But the gopis have a concern. And there is a maxim that justifies their concern, which says, the heart of a true friend suspects that some mishap will befall a friend. If you really love a friend, you are waiting for him and he's just 2 minutes later, you may start to wonder he's not coming, he's late, something must be happening to him. Due to love, not due to dysfunctional emotions, ideally. And also in the first verse, let's continue with this argument. The first verse, Vrindavan, it's said to have been decorated by Lakshmi herself. Jayati te dikam janmanabraya srayata Indira. Indira, Lakshmi is present there, decorating the whole Braj, so there cannot be. Vrindavan is not a desert, at least at that time. Now, unfortunately, externally it's becoming one. But city, and after that, maybe a desert. But Vrindavan is not a desert, it's not a hilly place, but on the contrary, its soil, its terrain is very gentle, very verdant. So, but the gopis are not acknowledging any of this at this precise moment. In their anxiety, they're just only thinking the opposite. Something may be happening to him. But again, the point is this maxim: a lover may inherently feel some apprehension at the time of separation out of concern for their beloved. This is also mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami, his Ujjval Nilamani. So in the context of explaining the Mahabhava of the gopis, because actually the gopis' feeling of grief here, again, it's not emotional dysfunctions, but it's fearful anticipation of the beloved's distress in the context of Bhakti Rasa. Now, even amidst in the mood of intimacy, if this expresses itself, that will be a symptom of the topmost Mahabhava. Rupa Goswami says that in Ujjval Nilamani. He says, in that stage, Mahabhav, a woman is afflicted by suspecting that her lover is in pain, although he is happy. So that's the nature, ecstatic nature of that love. And over again, please do not relate this to mundane anxiety, because I have heard that so many times. Sometimes devotees misunderstand all this. Say, oh no, they're suffering so much, I don't want to go there. I heard one person who became Buddhist because he felt, I don't want to suffer for eternity as the Mahaprabhu was exhibiting, the gopis are exhibiting. So he wanted to go to nirvana, stop suffering, stop existing. So, but that has nothing to do with, we were just atmanam manjate jagat. We are projecting our own limited sense of suffering and whatever other experience to that realm. So we should be very careful. Also, according to some of the commentators, there is another possibility in the mood of this verse. Bear with me. I will need some more minutes today, as I told you. So the gopis may be saying here, we are troubled because of the fear of hurting you. What is to be done now? If you perform severe austerities while praying to the Creator to make our breasts softer, that will cancel your happiness. But since our breasts are hard, your feet have pain. So that is a dilemma. So the point is why the gopis are saying here, if we pray to Brahma to make our breasts softer, that will cancel your happiness. What cancel your happiness? Because here the gopis imply Krishna is happy seeing the gopis suffer. That they already implied this in other verses. Srinath Pandit further confirms this in his commentary. He paraphrases the gopis who say, your feet are soft, but your heart is hard. That is why you roam the woods with such feet. And let me go for a minute to Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's commentary again in this connection. When he's speaking for the gopis, they say to Krishna, do your feet not hurt? Say, certainly they must. But again, just as you are merciless to us, so you are merciless also to your own body, to your own feet. You're merciless in every sense of the word. You endure the pain with the intention of making us suffer, knowing that if you suffer, we suffer. Now, here now the gopis will present their overwhelming situation, trying to figure out why he's not appearing and why he's going to the forest and why he's giving pain to them. So they will present the whole list of possibilities. The first one is this: do you endure the pain with the intention of making us suffer? Knowing that if you suffer, we suffer, or maybe you regard your pain as bliss, masochist, since you get bliss from seeing us suffer. So, or maybe the gopis also wonder, according to the principle that association breeds either good or bad qualities, originally your heart was very soft, but by contacting our hard breasts, you have now become hard-hearted. And in the same way, now your tender feet become hard by associating with our breasts. So they should not feel any pain from the stones and the dry grass. The gopis are wondering all the things in between the lines. Or maybe all the stones and other hard objects, maybe they became soft by contact with your glorious feet. So suddenly they start to glorify Krishna's feet. Before that, they say you are merciless. So this is the churning, undulating different expressions of Vishuddha Sattva ecstatic platforms. Or maybe Mother Earth, as we say, being merciful, or out of greed to taste your sweetness, is holding her tongue, as we say, as a carpet, as a resting place wherever your feet fall. Or else, maybe by chance you have fallen into the ocean of love for us, as we have for you, the gopis imply, and you have gone mad due to separation from us, and therefore in that maddened state, you cannot feel the pain in your feet. So the gopis conclude, according to Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, like after considering all these possible arguments, the gopis finally say, there are so many possible explanations that we cannot say definitely why you will not feel pain while roaming in this forest. So the whole conclusion is ecstatic, overwhelming, not reaching any conclusive statement here. That's why they express this here in this verse. Brahmati, overwhelming. Also, according to Vishwanath, there's another interpretation of Brahmati Dhir Bhavana Yusamna, this last expression of the verse. They say the mind reels, because the gopis say here this, our minds are reeling. The mind is reeling because it cannot come to a conclusion, but also our life force is conclusively, that's our conclusion. The only conclusion we know is our life force is conclusively going out of our bodies. So you should see this. Gopis are leaving their bodies, literally. So Krishna might retort, according to Vishwanath, no, how can you die if your lifespan is intact? You are there, young ladies. So in that regard, the Gopis say, the duration of our lives are offered to you. Bhavanayu Sam could also mean that. In this moment, we are offering our lifespan to you. And the idea with that is, now we are giving up our lifespans to you. They are yours. So we will die, and you can take our lifespans so that you can use them and have fun in Braj, wander, whatever you like, for as long as you like. That's another possible explanation of this line. Previously, the gopis' mental pain was described, but now their fainting, their zoom is being described. No? And they are almost leaving. So the gist of the verse, also, one of them is quickly arrive here, urgently. And of course, as we know, Krishna is just about to arrive, to manifest. But before appearing, there is some a little bit more arguments in between, according to Vishwanath. So Krishna may say to the gopis now, well, actually, the suffering that you are displaying, suffering in name only, because I don't consider that suffering, that I don't consider as suffering, that suffering as real suffering, because you are still alive. So again, the gopis are repeating this point over and over again. Our lives are all in you. You are our life is you. There's no separate sense of that. So as long as you're comfortable, even if we have to suffer this much tribulation we are going through now, we will remain alive. That's not a problem for us. So the idea behind this is that just like you, now the gopis present this other possibility, the creator, Brahma, the architect of this form, is engaged in trying to make us miserable. And his reasoning as follows, Vishwanath says, Brahma thinks, if the gopis die, then the purpose for which I have created them, which is so I will become happy by seeing their suffering, will not be accomplished. So according to the gopis, it is for this reason that, that Brahma placed their life heirs in Krishna. So they are not dying, they are not living, as we mentioned. So they continue like this. They say, you are very happy. They continue speaking to Krishna, seeing our agony. And that's why our life heir is also happy in you. And they are not disappearing. We are still alive. That's the reason we have not died yet, in spite of our agony. They are in agony, that's a fact. Agony means not dead, not alive. But now, the gopis say, it's too much of an agony for us. It's too much. So now you will see our life heir coming out as we die. So Krishna may ask again, how can you die? Your life is still present there. So the gopis are replying here, Bhavanayu Samna. You are our life. So we will die, but our life will remain in you. Our life heirs we will donate them to you. So you will live joyfully for millions of millenniums, but we are going. So that's indirect way of saying, quickly arrive here. We are leaving this world. So at this point, with all these implications present in this verse, mainly spoken by Radha, our acharyas explained that Krishna's heart is melting. Remember, he's witnessing all these verses, all these implications and more. So when he hears this to this particular point in the gopis here, we are living here, Radha is leading all the gopis, all the kirtan of the Gopi Gita, and all of them are about to die. Krishna's heart melts when he sees the gopis in such a pathetic condition. So he cannot escape at this point, if you will. He will think, oh yeah, the gopis will surely die. And if they die, I will die. That's a fact. We have to know that. So I must go to them at once and satisfy them. But again, the gopis are asking, according to him, they're satisfying Krishna, and Krishna is thinking about satisfying the gopis. So at this point, after pronouncing this verse, all the gopis fall to the ground, which is said unconscious, in a swoon, about to die. And at that moment, Krishna appears before them. Only at that moment, when they reach this topmost level of intensity and separation, and thus that will correspond to the topmost level of joy and union. So it is said that when the gopis will open their eyes and see him in their midst, it is as their life heirs have returned to their bodies again. Their life returned because Krishna returned. So the following chapter of the Bhagavatam will reveal what happened next. So we will continue next class, next week. Even though this is the last verse of the Gopi Gita, we will close the whole story. We'll finish our series with a series of classes next week by knowing what happened when Krishna reappeared. So let me share you some more words to give further emphasis to this particular verse and the fullest implication and contents in connection to Radha Bhava. So this verse, as I told you, this most important verse of the Gopi Gita. And as we mentioned in the very beginning of this series, the Veda, to put everything in context, the Veda is the topmost revelation. Vedanta is the essential presentation of the Veda, and the Bhagavad is the natural commentary on Vedanta, and the cream of the Vedic Kalpavriksha, desire tree. In the Bhagavad, the 10th canto is the principal gem there. And the Vrindavan pastimes will be, the Vrindavan section will be the gem over that gem, the crest jewel of the whole 10th canto, Braja Lila. On top of this, if you speak about Rasa Lila, it is called the Rasa Panchadhyaya. These first chapters about Rasa Lila are the ultimate essence of the Braja Lila. And the Gopi Gita, it's just in the middle of this Rasa Panchadhyaya, which is the most valuable chapter of the whole Rasa Panchadhyaya. It's the Song of Songs, as Guru Maharaj will depict it in the Bhagavad. So the Gopi Gita is the most important section of the Rasa Panchadhyaya, which is the most important section of the Braja Lila, which is the most important section of the Bhagavatam, which is the main section of the Vedanta, which is the essence of Veda, which is the topmost revelation, basically. And this, if the Gopi Gita is the all in all of the Song of Songs, this is the most important verse of the whole Gopi Gita, at least seen from a particular perspective. So, I mean, my point is, it's an important verse. Because that's the verse that will finally bring Krishna back. Before that, he was not appearing. So this verse spoken by Sri Radha in a unique mood, in a different chant, in a different meter, this is represented very heart of the whole Gopi Gita, and thus the very heart of the whole Bhagavad, which is the whole heart of the Bhagavad, the Madanakya Mahabhava of Sri Radha. Bhagavad is about love of Krishna. She is Mahabhav Swarupini, the topmost personification of divine love. So this is being expressed here. And this further implication, as we will see next week, this will eventually give us a result, the Gaur Avatar as well, the manifestation of Krishna as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So let me end today's discussion by sharing some brief words about Madanaki Mahabhav, the love of Radha, and how that affects to Krishna. But first of all, let's remind about this. If we say this is the most important verse, we can remember how in verse number 9, some weeks ago, Tava Katamritam Tapta Jivanam, the most maybe well-known verse of the Gopi Gita, glorifying Harikatha and the givers of Harikatha, how Mahaprabhu heard that verse from Prataparudra Maharaj in the midst of Ratha Yatra, and how Mahaprabhu reacted. He heard the whole Gopi Gita till that verse, and he embraced Prataparudra Maharaj ecstatically and so on. So we may conclude that's the most important verse of the Gita, at least the most famous maybe, but we may think also it's the most important, the most beautiful, but actually to say it's not. Of course, it's so beautiful, but this present verse, even the two previous verses, to say, are far superior to that one, because these three verses are, it says, hundreds of times sweeter than Tavagatamritam Tapta Jivanam. Tavagatamritam is a verse praising Harikatha, praising Krishna Lila. That verse is stating Harikatha is nectar, Amrit. But these verses, the last ones, and especially this one, are actual nectar, are actual Harikatha. And so in fact, it is said that the verses that come after verse 9 are also higher. As I mentioned, there is some crescendo there, one verse higher than the other one. Of course, all of the verses are beautiful. Even the previous ones to the 9th one, the 8 first verses, are beautiful, but not so exalted as the 9th one. And again, but Mahaprabhu became overwhelmed with divine ecstasy, experienced Asta Sattvika Vikar when he heard these first 9 verses. All different Vyabhichari, Sanchari, Anubhav, Vibhav, all blazed in him simultaneously, to say. So the point is, if all that happened when he heard only the first 9, okay, what would have happened if he had heard these sublime last verses of the Gopi song, especially the last 3 verses, especially this last verse? maybe he will have certainly become still more maddened, and that may have been too much for that moment. So again, this verse speaking about Radha Bhav, Radha Mahabhav. So Krishna disappeared. Let's go for a minute to the very beginning of the series, where Krishna disappeared from the Rasa Lila, mainly due to Radha, as we know. And now, of course, if he mainly disappeared because of Radha, he will only reappear because of her, mainly. So sometimes she's the topmost extractor of Krishna's rasa. Sometimes the example is given with the juice of bamboo, no? Bamboo stick, you make like the juice, bamboo juice, you call it. So you can extract that through one extractor. So to say that similarly, the prem of Radha is like an extractor of juice, of rasa. And Jis never fails in taking even the ultimate drop of rasa from Krishna. Jis extracting it all. Before her, it is said that Krishna cannot hide even a single drop of rasa. He cannot hide himself. That's the point. And he becomes forced to reappear, as he will do in the next section. Especially in the mood of Manini, when Radha is in sulky mood, that in this verse that surfaces for a moment, when Radha is criticizing Krishna's miserly and so on, merciless. So especially in the mood is when Radha is extracting fully Krishna's rasa. And that's when Krishna becomes, in that moment, Rasik Sekar, the topmost relisher at the same time of rasa, when he's being extracted by Sri Radha, if you will. That what gives new life to Krishna. Sometimes the example is given in the context of battle. Some warrior is fighting and may like faint, not because of weakness, but made faint and requires some sanjivani, like we know in the Ramayana regarding to Lakshman. Some sanjivani was required, some herbal that gave new life. Jivani means life. So similarly, Krishna is a warrior, but warrior in the battle of love. He's a hero. He's a Nayaka, Dira Lalita Nayaka. So when he faints in Vipralamba, in his battle with Cupid, now he's in that situation also now. Don't think that Krishna just seated in one chair smiling and just that's all. As we mentioned yesterday, I think, some days ago, Ananga. One name for Krishna is Ananga. He's Cupid, which is without bodily limbs, without bodily consciousness, means fainting in the context of the battle with Cupid. So in that precise moment, the darshan of Sri Radha would act as Sanjivani, as giving new life to him. So, and remember, here is Krishna is the one who is wishing, desiring for Radha's appearance, not that the gopis are asking something for their sake. Of course, ultimately, Krishna is also not selfish, but the connection is to highlight the selfless nature of the gopis' love here. So Krishna wishes Radha to be there, and thus she wishes him to be there. So in that connection, we will find the highest possible presentation of Krishna. Sometimes that receives a name which is Rasa Ghana Mohana Murti. Rasa means rasa, Ghana means like condensed, Mohana means bewildering, and Murti means form. This is an expression in Radha Rasa Sudanidhi. So that's the most attractive and condensed form of rasa present in Krishna, which is when he fully surrenders, when he fully recognizes and surrenders to Radha's superiority, if you will, to Radha's love, when his head is being inclined to touch Sri Radha's feet, the famous line in the Gita Govinda, Devi Pada Palavanodaram. Jayadev doubted about writing it because say, I'm about to write that Krishna is putting his head on Radha's feet. That's too much. As you know the story, Krishna eventually comes dressed as Jayadev and he himself writes the line to confirm, yes, that's a Krishna we worship, basically. The one who has his head on the feet of Radha, the one who like inclines towards love. So we will speak further more in detail next class about that. Krishna accepting his defeat in the next classes. Krishna accepting his defeat in Radha's love and trying to know more about that and taste that as Sri Gaur, and. So only when Krishna is touching the feet of Radha, it is said that the experience of Krishna becomes heightened, topmost heightened. It is said that only then at that point Krishna's rasa becomes rasotsav, reaches the point of being a festival, being really worthy of being celebrated. And that's why Krishna interrupted the Rasa Lila in the beginning. He didn't consider this is Rasotsav yet. He didn't feel subjectively, I'm experiencing a big festival. He needed to reach a high point of condensation of rasa, especially in the context of Radha Bhav, that at that point he will reappear, he will subject himself to the feet of her, recognize his defeat, and then they will continue with Rasa Lila, and that will be real Rasotsav, real worthy of celebration. So that's why Krishna disappeared in the very beginning, because there was not such a level of condensation of rasa. So these are very good. As you may imagine, we are so fortunate to be hearing these things. We are, I mean, coming from conditioned lives, nitya vada jivas, suddenly speaking about the absolute, the supreme person who is sought for by the Vedas. And we are hearing now how he instead is folding his hands before Radha, begging for mercy, begging to her kinkaris, her servants, and humbly praying to them, please arrange for me a meeting with your Swamini, with your mistress. I have no other shelter but you, girls. Very confidential. And that's why one name of Krishna, one of Krishna's favorite name is Krishna Kinkar. Again, Kinkar means like menial servant, a doer of whatever means. Like whatever is necessary, Kinkar will be there. So Radha has her Kinkaris, but she has also one Kinkar, and that's Krishna. He after being trained, properly trained by Manjaris, by the Kinkaris, about how to worship Radha in different particular ways. Now we won't enter into that detail in this series, but after being properly educated in that arena, Krishna also receives the title, the label of Kinkar. So Krishna loves so much when someone is calling him Krishna Kinkar. He will say, oh, you know that about me. You know about my identity as a servant, intimate, menial servant of Sri Radha. So some ideas, as you know, all these things are implied in the Gopi Gita contained here. So as much as Krishna, Gopi, Sri Radha, Shukadev gives Guru Parampara, give us the mercy, only there we will be able to continue and relish Harikatha. It's not in our hands. This is a matter of divine grace. So we can relish Harikatha to one level or another according to grace, but that relishment will be never able to be finished. That has to be understood. That's an ending. Ananta Katha. Kim Brahma Janmavir Ananta Katha Rasasya, says Uddhava. For one who doesn't have a taste for Ananta Katha, the unlimited glories of Hari, what is the use of being born in a high Brahmana family or as Brahma himself if you don't have such a taste? What's the meaning of that? And if you do have such a taste, what's the meaning of being born as a Brahmana or Brahma? That's the point. No? So the point is, do we have to develop this Harikatha, Rasasya, Ananta Katha Rasasya, says Buddha. Ananta is unlimited. There's no end to how much we can relish that. That's why the Bhagavatam is beginning. No? Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Hurahora Sikha Bhuvi Babuka. Relish this Bhagavatam, even in a post-liberated status. There is no end to such a relishment. So some words I wanted to share with you today. I extended a little bit more with your permission. Thank you very much for your patience. And today, again, we are officially finishing the Gopi Gita, but next week we will spend 4 more days from Monday to Thursday. And we will be discussing how Krishna reciprocated to the Gopi Gita by appearing in their midst, especially studying the first 2 verses of the next chapter, chapter 32, one every day, because these 2 verses are generally attached to these 19 verses as part of the Gopi Gita. So on Monday, we will start studying first verse, Tuesday, second verse, and on Wednesday and Thursday, we will study the remaining section of chapter 32 and chapter 33, where we'll see the whole conclusion and end of the Rasa Panchadhyaya, these 5 chapters about Rasa Lila, where we will meet the happy end, if you will, of the story. And much more than that, as we say, the whole thing overflowing to the form of another whole lila, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. So thank you very much for your time. And I don't know if you have any questions, any doubts. Already we have taken some time. Okay, it seems that the overwhelming of the gopis have been invited by you and you remain stamba. You cannot say a word. So that's a good symptom. Harikata has that potential. So thank you very much to all of you. See you next week. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Nam Sankirtan ki jai, Sri Gaur Radha Madhav ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, GITA ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Pramananda Hari Bo, Vancha Kalpataru Vishta, Kripa Sindhu Devacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Hari Bo.
Padmanabha Swami ki jai.